Hogstye.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Hogstye. It is the weekend before the draft. Everyone, I'm sure, has done a million mocks and is ready to go. And although Steve doesn't do mocks,
I used to in years past when I had a rooting interest in
right.
Redskins. I haven't this year.
Even then, you would maybe do one or two. You're not one of those people who do like 5 a day.
No, I have an actual job.
Yes. Yeah. I don't understand. Like, the first year they came out, they were a lot of fun. I did a lot of them, but I got bored of it after a while.
You know who we forgot to get on this show was the guy from the mock draft site.
Oh, Steve Shoup.
Yeah, I forgot all about him. That's my fault.
I still give him credit. They came up with that idea first of the online mock draft simulator, but now there's like 12 of them. It's insane how many different sites do it.
Yeah, but Steve, if you're listening, we didn't intentionally overlook you. I just totally forgot.
Yeah. And I hope you're doing well, Steve. You're a good dude. So, other Steve.
I'm not, but Steve Shoup is. He knows what he's talking about. I mean, we didn't have him on just to promote his site. It was like he really actually knows these players real well.
He is super nerdy about the draft.
Yeah. But
and
have you done a bunch of mock drafts?
I've done like 3 or 4. I kind of know what I think the team should do at this point, which is, and I think you do too. Like, we know who their top 5 candidates are. It sounds like they want to trade back this year. That's been the scuttlebutt from reporters and stuff. Is if they can trade back at 11, they will. But you have to find a partner.
To be honest, I mean, I've paid a lot less attention this year than I have in other years for a variety of reasons, most of which I've gone over on this show.
Yeah.
So I mean, I've seen trade back. I've seen
a lot of interest in defense again in the secondary.
I've seen, Hamilton, the safety.
Yeah.
The who's the wide receiver from USC I like.
London.
Yeah. The one that scared me when I preparing for the show this morning was a rumor that they brought in a defensive end for an interview, which I mean,
the guy who's projected to go number 1 overall. Like,
that's just truly mind-boggling. Yeah, I mean, if it's number 1 overall, they're just doing their due diligence. I get it, but listen, if they draft a defensive lineman, that's just negligence.
Really. Yeah, that would be a little nuts, honestly.
Draft negligence.
Yeah. And I think I get that they'll probably leaning defense because that's who this coaching staff is, but. Do you know how many more first-round picks can you possibly get on this defense and still not be a top 10 defense? Like,
or even anywhere close.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, the part of the reason you're not a top 10 defense is your offense doesn't get off or doesn't stay on the field enough.
Listen, if I were a fan of the Washington team, I'd be rooting for wide receiver.
Yeah. I am rooting for a wide receiver. I'm rooting for like 3 different wide receivers. So. Like, I'm pretty.
Who are they? Who are the ones you're rooting for?
Well, London is one, and I love both the guys from Ohio State for different reasons. I think, getting another Terry clone makes a lot of sense in Olave, but then the other guy, we're going to talk about the Deebo Samuel thing in a little bit, but is it Wilson? Because there's also the kid from Alabama as well.
I think that's what. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. He reminds me a lot of what Deebo Samuel is, like, just that give him the ball and watch him have fun, kind of receiver.
Yeah.
We need somebody who's fun to watch on this team.
I mean, well, the team has ignored offense in the draft at the top of the draft.
Yeah.
Not in set rounds 2 and 3.
Right.
But they haven't had an offensive pick, especially one that worked out, in a while.
Well, so the last one who worked out was Brandon Scherff.
That's what I was about to suggest, is probably Brandon Scherff.
And before that, Trent Williams. And let's be real. Every offensive specialist they've taken in the top of the draft is busted in the last 10 plus years.
So let's go over this real quick.
Okay, you want to do it real quick?
Yeah, I got it in front of me. So Jamin Davis, Chase Young. I'm going backwards. Dwayne Haskins, bust.
Yeah.
In round 1. Deron Payne, defense. Jonathan Allen, 2007, Josh Doxson, bust. 2016, Brandon Scherf, 2015, obviously a success. And then from there, you got to go back to Robert Griffin in 2012.
Bust.
So what that means is, and that was 10 years ago, right? That's 11 years ago, 11 drafts ago. And so you got 1, 2, 3, 4 offensive picks.
Right.
In 10 years. And all of them, but 3 of 4 have been busts.
Right. And the last one's a guard. Like
who's now gone, by the way.
Well, but I'm not going to say that's a bust.
No, he's not a bust. He's a success.
You kept him here for what, 8 years or something like that, 7 years. It was a good run. You're moving on because he's too expensive. I get it. I can't remember the last time they drafted a specialist on offense, which means wide receiver, tight end, quarterback, running back.
Well, I'm going to keep going backwards.
In the first round, that didn't bust. Like, when's the last time?
2011, Ryan Kerrigan. 10 is Trent Williams.
Right.
9 was Arakpo.
Right.
And then in 2008, they didn't have first-round pick, and that was the Devin Thomas, Fred Davis, Malcolm Kelly.
That was a nightmare.
All of them busted.
Yeah.
2007, LaRon Landry. 2006, no first-round pick. Oh, here, I got one. So 2005, Jason Campbell.
Okay.
I'd call him a success.
I not great.
Well, he was drafted 25th. Also, remember,
average quarterback play. That's the
by Washington standards, not a bust. Yeah,
right. Not a total like blew up in your face, destroyed your franchise, and you have to rebuild and start over because that's what happens if you screw up on a quarterback. Bust.
Right. And then you got to go to Patrick Ramsey in 2002. Bust.
Yeah.
Rod Gardner, 2001. Bust.
Michael Westbrook's before that, right? I think if you
get Steven Alex. Oh, that's he was around too. Gosh, man, yeah. And then you go back to Michael Westbrook in '95, bust.
Right.
So, and then Heath Schuler. So they've had remarkably
terrible
success, horrible success.
So bad at like first and like. By the way. Like, we could really do this. You're going to go to Art Monk, and that's the real...
Well, yeah. So then you go to Desmond Howard. Now, I think you and I went back and forth on Howard. I would call Desmond Howard a success overall because he was such an elite returner. But certainly for Washington, the position that they drafted him for, bust, and he left.
Yeah.
So I guess you call him a bust as a draft pick, but I would not call Howard a bust overall just for Washington. That's
right.
And so then...
Most of the 80s, we don't have first-round picks.
Yeah, I'm keep going backwards here. So... Yeah. That was Howard was 92, and then, oh my God,
yeah, it's so depressing.
Yeah, I'm keep going. I'm now at 84, no first round pick because, like you said, 83 was Darryl Green.
81 is Art Monk, or am I confusing his jersey number with the year he was drafted?
Art Monk is 80.
80, okay.
Yes. So you got to go back to Art Monk, really and truly. So Brandon Scherf to Art Monk.
Right.
That's awful history, kids.
Trent Williams was good. Like the lineman.
Oh yeah, Trent. I forgot about Trent. Trent. Yeah, I forgot about him. I've said him, but I just totally go.
Same with Chris Samuel, and was John Jansen the second rounder? I feel like he was.
Jansen was second rounder.
They're good at drafting linemen and defense.
Oh, I skipped I was in my head. I think I was looking for skill position. So Samuel, Williams, Scherf, and
Art Monk
in the past 40 years.
Right. My whole you went past my lifetime. That's how bad it's been.
So I don't know why anybody thinks it'd be any different in 2022. So for you Washington fans, don't hold your breath.
Right. Well, look, this is a good crop of wide receivers, right? Like
they'll pick the wrong one though.
Yeah, watch them overdraft Olave or something like that. You know,
it doesn't matter if they overdraft or not. It won't work out.
Right.
Because it doesn't for this team.
That is true. Everything goes wrong. All right. So, one of the reasons why I think I got less enthusiastic about this draft is, I kind of was early on mentally prepping that we would go into this draft and this would be when we go for another quarterback because we didn't have a quarterback. I'm a big Heinecke fan, but let's be honest, he is what he is. Then the team went and made this trade for Wentz, and now they don't need a quarterback. And it's probably a good move because let's look at this quarterback class, and that's the position group we're going to focus on today.
It's always my favorite.
Yes, it's our favorite because it's also the easiest one to study.
Well, it's not. I mean, I spend a lot of time studying these guys.
Well, but like in terms of like watching QB play, it's always very easy because that's who the camera's always focused on.
True. But I think I'm better at reviewing quarterbacks in some other positions. Like I don't really try on the lineman. I usually call Robbie Duncan.
Right.
And ask him. Okay, so here's my list. Now my list is a little bit different than what you're going to read in many other sources, and I will get to why. So this is going to go from my number one down, and so I have Kenny Pickett listed as my number one prospect.
Right.
Now hear me out. So Kenny Pickett, first of all, 67% completion percentage last year, 4,300 plus yards, 42 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. So great numbers in 2021. That was a banner year for him, no doubt.
Yeah.
And in his other years, he spent 5 years at Pitt, started 4 years, 52 games, very experienced. His completion percentage was a little lower until last year, so he only put together last year, but he's very experienced. But this guy looks like a quality NFL dropback passer.
Sure.
He doesn't have a John Elway cannon, but he's got decent arm strength, solid mechanics. I don't see his footwork being off almost ever. He knows how to read the entire field. He does it consistently. Now, the downside to him is that he looks like a Walmart Brett Favre a little bit, in that Brett Favre was a gunslinger, throws it all over the place, makes some mistakes. Favre, of course, is a Hall of Famer, good enough to do that. Pickett kind of looks like that, but I don't think he is Brett Favre.
Let's be honest, that's the big thing too.
Yeah,
right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think if he's going to succeed, he needs to be less Brett Favre and more Tom Brady in terms of how he operates. Most people think he's a first rounder. Personally, I thought he was probably top 20. Maybe that's kind of where I would see him. So that's Pickett. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Look, I'm with you. When you talk about quarterbacks, remember the old Bill Parcells, like he had like six check boxes that he had. I don't remember exactly what they all were. I remember one was completion percentage. That one
one was number of games played.
Yeah, and that was the one I was going to get to. So many of these guys coming out now only play 1 or 2 seasons, which drives me nuts as like a fan of some of that traditional stuff that Parcells advocated for. You look at Pickett, he's got the right height. He's 6'3". Like that. A lot of these guys also, I think I've mentioned this early on when we were talking about quarterbacks way back when. This might be the shortest quarterback class we've ever seen, because I think most of them are 6'1" or less.
Oh, in height wise? Yeah. There's a bunch of shorties. Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
But Pickett's 6'3". He's got the right height. He's played a ton of games. The only thing that, you worry about is that completion percentage over his career, which wasn't great.
Well, again, it's because he does take chances.
Right.
And Pitt's offense is not just dumping off into the flats all the time.
No.
He really does look like an NFL quarterback. Listen, I should have said this up front. This is a terrible year for quarterbacks, okay?
It really
Kenny
is.
Pickett,
we all know that.
In normal years, Kenny Pickett would be ranked number 4 or something, not number 1.
Mm-hmm.
So by the way, our writer Paul Francis loves him and wrote a column about him a while ago, if you want to read it. Okay. Yeah. So that's Pickett.
I like Pickett, by the way. Like, I think if we needed a quarterback and that's who they went with, I'd be A-okay with that move.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
The hand size thing, I know people worry about. He has the same exact hand size as I do, and I'm like just some 5'10". I can't do anything in the NFL zilch. But
I should have mentioned that. I do think it's a problem.
Sure. It's a
8.5 inches is very small hands.
Yeah.
Like my hands are 10. I have pretty big hands, but my hands are 10. I can't imagine gripping an NFL football in a game with tiny hands like that. So, but somehow he's managed to do it, and he hasn't fumbled too much. The college ball, I think, is slightly different than NFL ball. But regardless, I think that's another negative. All right, Matt Corral is the next, number 2. He's 6'2", 205 out of Mississippi. Ole Miss, was there for 4 years, 37 games. Overall in his career, 67% completion percentage. About matched what he did last year. He's at 68 last year. a total of 3,300 plus yards last year, 20 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So here's the thing: what I saw in Matt Corral. Number one, he looks a bit undersized.
Sure.
And not from a height wise. He's just his body type, 205, 6'2", is a bit thin, a bit small. I think his biggest problem to me was he had questionable deep ball arm strength. I didn't think a lot of his passes downfield were all that good. His biggest plus is that he's a pretty good athletic dual threat quarterback. He's not Lamar Jackson for sure, but he can really run. And there are times when he was leading us. He was, the driving force in the offense, with his running ability. They ran a lot of RPOs, shotgun, pistol. That won't work for some teams. Other teams, it will. So I think part of where Matt Corral goes is where people see him. Most people, the scouts, saw him as a second-round pick. I also saw him as a second-round pick because of these limitations he has. I don't think he'd be worth drafting in the first round.
No.
I don't think he's an immediate starter necessarily. I think he has potential to be good as long as he goes to a scheme that can properly use him. And a lot of these guys are in this boat. A lot of them have flaws.
Yeah.
But to him, plus athletic ability, fairly accurate, reads the field sometimes, questionable arm strength, but he's an athlete. That's how I see Matt Corral.
I honestly, he's fun to watch. I remember early on when I was looking at all these quarterbacks, assuming we were going to draft one early, he was one that I was like, this guy is basically just a better version of Taylor Heinecke in a good way. Like, he's more athletic. He's got a better arm. But like the way he plays reminds me a lot of how we liked good Taylor to play when he was like, just go out there, make plays, go have fun. Like, not the get in your head and, stay in the pocket when you shouldn't, Taylor Heinecke.
He's also a bit taller than Heinecke, too.
Yeah,
He's 6'2",
only an inch or
so
two.
that helps him a little bit.
But that does help, yeah. Look, an inch or two matters in this game for a quarterback. Corral's got great personality, too. I don't know if you watched any of the interviews and stuff he did.
No, I didn't watch any interviews.
Yeah, I watched some of these guys interview, and he really stood out to me there. I remember that.
Okay, so that's Matt Corral. Of the two, I think Pickett's by far the better prospect. I think it's Pickett, and it's not
Pickett's
close,
the safest of these prospects. No
question.
question.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, I have Desmond Ritter 3, and this is where we're really getting controversial with my rankings. But I had Desmond Ritter 3. Redshirt senior, spent 5 years at University of Cincinnati, 50 games in 4 seasons, 62% completion percentage, isn't that good? As a runner, he had over 2,000 yards, 501 carries. In 2001, 65% completion percentage, 2-time first team All ACC selection. Average arm strength, but very accurate. Knows how to throw into NFL windows. That's what you really see about Desmond Ritter. He can really, really put the ball in when he's on,
right,
in NFL tight windows. Very good at that.
Yeah.
I'd say second only to probably Pickett for doing that. And now he makes mistakes. He's kind of, again, sort of similar. He'll throw things he shouldn't, and I think he's much less consistent than Pickett. But of these guys, I think I put Corral first, in part also because Corral played in the SEC against tougher competition. But I think Ritter is right up there with both of those two guys. Now, some people there's a wide range of opinions on Ritter. Some of these scouts have him ranked, a couple of them have him ranked number 1.
Yeah.
Some of them have him in first round. Personally, I think he's kind of a second round prospect because his mechanics there are tons of mechanics, and his footwork are totally off.
Yeah.
Totally off. And he's not nearly as consistent as Corral in terms of footwork as Corral and Pickett. Sometimes his feet are pointing the wrong direction and it throws him off, So, but I like Desmond Ritter as prospect.
He's probably my favorite prospect. Like, like I said, Pickett's probably the safest. Corral's a lot of fun. Ritter to me is a balance between the two. Like, he's a little more athletic than Pickett. He's got a little bit more, like, he'll move with the ball. Obviously, you look at those rushing totals. But he's got better size, and he's played a ton of games. He started all 4 seasons. I think you mentioned that.
Yeah.
I really like, if we needed a quarterback, And honestly, none of these are first-round quarterback. Like, none of these guys should really be first-rounders.
I think Pickett
will.
would be a low first-round pick in a normal year. Pickett, I think,
in a normal
is a
year, yeah. Like, Ritter's the guy I would have taken a gamble on. If we didn't trade for Wentz, Ritter would have been that guy for me. He'd have
been a good shot.
Yeah, like he's got all the boxes checked, other than the mechanics thing, and it's a guy that you take him and you say, we're not winning this year, we're gonna sit you and let Heinecke just fight again. But that would have been my move if I were the GM of this team.
Yeah, I mean, I would take all three of them if I were a GM. I'd have taken Pickett, Corral, and Ritter.
I mean, it's a risk. These are all high risk guys. I probably would have said I'm going to sit until the second round and take one of them.
Well, yeah, that's absolutely. I would have waited. That's what I was about to say. I would have waited. Whoever's left at my draft point of Corral and Ritter in round 2, I probably would go with either one of them.
Right.
Okay.
You're going to overdraft somebody.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm getting to that. He's next.
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the controversial one. Malik Willis. I have him ranked number 4. I'm the only one who has him ranked number 4.
Right.
Everybody else has him number 1 because they've lost their minds. And some of them have him number 2 behind Pickett. Though I think I saw Ritter in one of these, but I had him ranked number 4, and I watched a lot of his film. Well, first of all, here's the numbers. Background: spent 2008, 17, and 18 in Auburn. Basically didn't play much at all. Transferred to Liberty. Sat out a year because of the then existing transfer rules. Played 2020 and 2021 at Liberty. In total, his stats in college, which are 100% Liberty, play 388 completions, 62.8% completion percentage, 5,000 yards, 48 touchdowns, 18 interception. As a runner, because he's a runner, 366 carries, 2,100 plus yards, 5.8 yards per carry, 29 touchdowns. Last year at Liberty, 61% completion percentage, 339 pass attempts, 2,800 yards, and then he had 800 and almost 900 yards rushing. Didn't run the 40 at the combine or anywhere. His time is rumored to be in the 4.3, high 4.3, low 4.4 range. Here's what I saw. This is a guy who, much like Robert Griffin, has relied on his athleticism for so long that he's not a very good passer. Let's be honest. And I think Griffin was a much better passer than Willis. I think Willis has a long way to go as a passer. I think he's inconsistent. I think his mechanics are off. He does almost never reads a field. Occasionally he will, but does he go through his whole read progression? No, he takes off to run all the time. He doesn't have any touch on his passes. It's all just like a bunch of like lasers. Right. Sometimes that's not the right thing to do. I think
that was one thing Griffin had over him.
Yes, Griffin was a much better passer. Touch. Yeah, he was much better. I mean, he didn't work out and all that, but he had a much better arm, a much better, more developed arm. Malik Willis really reminds me situationally a lot of Trey Lance. Trey Lance, another guy, very inexperienced, very raw as a passer. I think Malik Willis, he runs, awesome. But at the end of the day in the NFL, you have to be able to pass the ball, and it's questionable. Here's what I fear about this guy. Somebody's going to be amazed. He's got elite arm strength, best in the class by far. Somebody's going to go, oh my God, he's an athlete. He's got a huge arm. We can fix him. Now, if he does not go to the right team, it's going to be a total disaster. Like Lamar Jackson, who also was a much better passer than Willis coming out of college, went to the exact right program. Baltimore knew how to use him, and they still to this day. If Malik Willis does not go to a team like that, he will be a bust. He will be a bust. So to me, it's way too much risk to rank him higher, because I think if you don't have a quality coach in the right system, it's never going to work. And I don't think that he needs the kind of pressure that will be put on him as a first round pick. If you give him a lower draft position, you don't feel obligated to play him immediately. I think it'd be much better for him.
I mean, I agree with you. And look, the flags of, hey, he transferred from Auburn to Liberty to get a chance to start. And people can say it's not. That is a flag. If you're like these guys that are moving around a lot in college, if I were an NFL coach, I'd be eyeballing that and concerned about it. Like, to me, it means you're not, standing by a commitment you made. I know that might be a little old-fashioned to think that way, but And it means like you didn't think you could compete, so you just gave up and ran somewhere else. Like that's
Well,
what I
yeah.
think.
I mean, I don't so much mind the commitment issue because I think, a lot of colleges lock these kids in with the signing letters and they can't back out on
I
them.
know
And
there's two sides
yeah,
to that. That
and
it's
he did set out an entire year, but what it's so to do it, it's not like the transfer portal today. But what does bother me is the last part you said, which is you knew you couldn't compete.
right.
So where'd you go to? What are they, D2 school? I mean,
They're mid-major now, but they were a D2 school like 3 years ago.
yeah, whatever they call D. I think D2 is now FCS, I believe.
Yes, they
I
were an
can't remember.
FCS school, and like 10 years ago they didn't even exist.
Yeah,
It's one of those programs that just kind of popped up.
and if you look at who he played, they didn't play anybody.
No, they are a small school in the weakest conference in the mid-majors.
Yeah,
That's who they are.
and then most importantly, though, if you watch his film again, he's not an accomplished passer. I just
No.
think that's so important. Yes, athleticism is wonderful in a quarterback, but Russell Wilson could pass the ball. Lamar Jackson had a pro coach in a pro system and was a pretty good passer in college. He wasn't John Elway, but he was a good passer and he had weak receivers. This guy is not a quality, consistent passer, and that's why I just can't, in good conscience, rank him higher than 4.
I think there are flags there. The accuracy thing is a big concern.
Yeah.
Yeah, people fall in love with freakishly athletic quarterbacks. We know that. It's just a thing that happens in the NFL, and they bust a little bit more often than your traditional passers.
Well, these coaches are so arrogant that they think they can fix them. That's the problem. Okay, so let's move on.
Yep.
Because we are running out of time with this.
Yeah.
So Carson Strong, I'm going to go a little bit faster through the rest of these because at this point now we're going. So I had 10 of these. Those were the best of the bunch. Yeah. Now we're getting into the sort of the mid-tier ones. So Carson Strong out of Nevada. Carson Strong is an outstanding quarterback, outstanding passer, 68% completion percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was a mountain. He's outstanding. His problem is he has a medical history. He's had multiple knee surgeries. That's the problem. I think if he had clean medicals, I might be tempted to put him number 2. But because of his medicals, I don't think. I mean, you just can't. Take a chance. I'm no doctor, but I mean that's a risk. So I like Carson Strong, but you have to be ready for knee problems. Okay, Sam Howell's next. North Carolina, 6'1". Oh, and Strong, by the way, is big dude, 6'4". That's the other thing. It looks like it has the look. I mean, 6'4", 225. Howell Jr., North Carolina, 6'1", 220, so a little short, 37 games, 64% completion percentage. Got worse last year, 62.5. He has a decent arm, not a great arm, can read the field well. His problem is he's horribly inconsistent. Mm-hmm. I watched a lot of film on Howell, and I broke down and watched some analysis by JT O'Sullivan on him. The dude is all over the place. Cannot get it together, cannot be consistent at any time. He looks great, he looks horrible. That's the risk with Sam Howell. And his offensive line was horrible. That didn't help.
It feels like, and we can just cover both these guys real quick.
Yeah.
Strong is interesting because I think he's kind of got that, like he'd be a very good backup vibe. He's good, accurate. He can't move, which in the NFL these days is a pretty bad thing. Who was that guy that the Patriots drafted like 5 or 6 years ago? Very similar to that. They drafted some kid in the 3rd round who was like, he's accurate, he's got a cannon for an arm. You basically have to play him out of shotgun and expect he can't even step back. Like that's
especially with Strong's injuries, he has the look of a classic pocket quarterback.
Right. But the NFL, you need to be a lot more mobile now.
Which is why he's lower ranked.
Yeah. Howell, it felt like early in the year, Howell was probably going to be the number 1 quarterback in this class, and he is just cratered. You're not the only person I've seen have him in like this 5th, 6th best range.
He can't stay consistent. He makes mistakes all the time. He looks great and he looks terrible.
I feel like, let's think, who are the other quarterbacks that have come out of North Carolina recently? Mitch Trubisky and Daniel Jones, right?
Somebody on this show said Mitch Trubisky wasn't going to make it, and somebody was not listened to.
Well, but I'm just saying it seems like this is a MO of
absolutely.
North
Carolina.
Carolina.
They're at North Carolina too. Okay,
yeah.
So next, Jack Cohn from Notre Dame, 6'3", 223. He's got great numbers. 67% completion percentage, had 6,400 yards last year. He's another guy that looks like a classic NFL pocket passer. His problem is he's good arm strength. Needs to get better at accuracy in cases. His problem is he makes Sam Howell or Carson Strong look mobile.
Right.
This guy truly is a statue. Truly can't. I mean, he has to have someone pick him up and move him for him because his legs won't move.
Mm-hmm.
That's how immobile Jack Cohn is. And obviously, I'm being facetious. He's a day. Most people have him day 3. I have him day
all
3.
the rest of these guys are definitely day 3.
Yeah, absolutely. That's Cohn. His destiny is as a backup. Bailey Zapp, interesting dude. Only 6 feet tall, 213. The least heralded resume of anybody on here. Spent 4 years at Houston Baptist University. I know what that is because I'm in the Houston area, but no one else does. Transferred to Western Kentucky as a graduate student for 2021. Burned up the joint there. Passed for almost 6,000 yards. 70% completion percentage. Now again, Western Kentucky is playing the Malik Willis schools of the world.
Yeah, and Western Kentucky, year in, year out, it feels like their quarterbacks always put up cartoonish numbers like this.
Yes.
They run the most ridiculous pass-heavy system, I guess, in the
that's
in
exactly
the league.
Right. But yeah, but he got a lot of attention, and he's on this list because of all those stats.
Of course.
Weak arm, questionable decision-making. He's too short, 6 foot. It can be inaccurate. So he's a back of the draft guy. If you're looking for... I mean, he's sort of a Taylor Heinecke-like type of guy. That's kind of, you put him in that bucket.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Derrick King from Miami, even shorter, 5'11", 195. Interesting dude, came to Miami as a wide receiver, did spend a couple years as a wide receiver there, transitioned to quarterback eventually, and as a passer, 63% completion percentage, 8,000 yards, 48 games, 76 touchdowns, 19 interception. Obviously, he's very short. He's a runner at heart. Average 4.9 yards a carry. This is not a guy you want as your pocket passer. This is like, this is a guy like, he's not like Taysom Hill, but he needs to play a role like Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill's bigger and bulkier.
He's much smaller than Taysom Hill.
Yeah, right. But I think you don't draft Derrick King necessarily to be your full-time quarterback. You draft him to be there but play a role. I think that's
just to be an offensive weapon. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and you can put him back there. And again, they use Taysom Hill sometimes. That's kind of what you do with Derrick King. At day 3 or undrafted free agent. Dustin Crum, Kent State, 6'3", 207. Last guy here, 67% completion percentage. Overall, last year a little bit worse, 64%. Good size, 6'3", like I said. Average arm strength, inaccurate. Can't produce through his reads, inconsistent. Back of the draft or undrafted free agent.
Yeah.
And that is all 10 of them. That's who I had.
There's a couple more out there. The kid from Brown, not a whole lot of note in the back of the draft anyway. So I'm not going to sweat it. But that's where this team, just to wrap up with this team, the Washington Commanders need to be looking at a day 3 quarterback.
I would probably take a shot on Cohn if I were going to do that. I agree with you.
Yeah.
And of these guys, I just don't think like Derrick King. I mean, they need an actual quarterback.
Right.
Dustin Crum, just not as good enough passer. Bailey Zapp, again, kind of a unicorn. Or that's the wrong term. He's just too small.
A flash in the pan there.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I was trying to say. Flash in the pan. Cohn is the guy who has the size. Yeah, that's who I would probably go with as a day 3 dude.
Because here's the thing. Yeah, they might see Carson Wentz as their long-term answer. That's great. You only have 2 quarterbacks on the roster at this point. You should always have a third somewhere, either on your practice squad, worst, or, but you need somebody under a cheap contract control, which is what you get if you draft a quarterback in the 6th round. He might not be the best quarterback. He's going to be your emergency guy, and he'll be playing for you for $500,000. Like that. That's
he'll be on your practice squad.
Or he'll be on your practice squad, right? Yeah. So that they do need to go after I don't care if it's Crum. I honestly don't care who it is, because if we go to this guy, probably not going to work out.
Probably not. You know, like they had Steven Montez, who I thought they would keep around. They didn't. Right. So what do I think is going to happen? I think somebody's going to dramatically overdraft Malik Willis. Somebody's going to go nuts.
People are saying top 10 for him.
That's just insane. I think you're crazy. You just can't. Anyway, I've been over that. I'm not going to repeat that. I think that's crazy.
Too much risk there.
So I think it'll be Willis, Pickett, Corral, Ritter, or Ritter, Corral. One of those. That's what's going to happen on Thursday and Friday.
Yeah. My only question, and this is strictly a hypothetical. If, let's say, you make some moves, you trade back, let's say you trade back in the first, get an extra second rounder later in the second round.
Okay.
If let's say somehow a Pickett or Pickett won't, but a Corral or Ritter is there, and you're drafting at, I don't know, 50 something
for Washington.
Yeah. Do you maybe make a move at a quarterback then, or is that still like, well, you got to commit to Carson Wentz?
I think monetarily they've committed to Carson Wentz. And so I don't think you want a big draft contract, because Taylor Heinecke is still there. He's making a couple $1 million. Right. I'll look it up here in a second. So I don't think you go second round. I think that's just too many assets invested in the room. I think if you draft second rounder, you have to think starter, and that's just not what you're going to be there with Wentz there for next 3 years. So I think that would be an inefficient use of a draft pick.
Okay, because either Corral or Ritter, if they somehow were there and we had a pick in the late second, I would very much be tempted to use it. Because to me, I don't know what the draft scale is for those picks, but I think it's $1.5 million, something like that, in the second round, which is not bad for a backup, if that's roughly what you're talking about.
Well, I mean, it's also not good.
No, it's not good. But that would be the only kind of wild card I could see for this team. Is, let's say they do like one or two of those guys in the second, or somehow, let's say it's a third round pick. I don't know. This is all, you'd have to acquire a pick in those rounds to make it happen. Okay, and I don't want to trade up for something. But
as an example, let's see. So Antonio Gibson was drafted in round 3.
Okay.
$4.9 million contract. 1.2 million average annual value. Okay. Here, in going into year 3, he's at 1.3 million. Now, who was around 2? Was Daniel Brown around 2?
He was around 3, I think.
So I'm going to my chart because I have all this. Yeah. Round 3. Oh, okay. If you give me a round 2, I'm striking out on the round 2 picks here off the top of my head.
St. Juice around 2? No, he was. I don't remember who our last round.
I'm going through my chart. I'm just kind of scanning through here.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I'm not going to sit here. But so you're looking at a contract of more than 4.9 million. I just don't think that's smart. Now, it also depends on how much emphasis, how much weight the team places on need versus pure talent. So we don't really know, because newsflash for those of you in the back, every team, no matter how many times you guys scream BPA, every team places weight on team need in their draft grades.
Oh,
just
absolutely.
a matter of how much. And we don't really know. I tend to think Rivera puts more on, because otherwise he wouldn't have drafted Jamin Davis, So I tend to think that they do place more emphasis on need. And they drafted the same thing the year before, it was a need pick. So I don't think they're going to go quarterback in round 2.
I don't think that would just be the only wild card hypothetical I could see happening.
Yeah, fair enough.
They're not going to do it in the first round. They're not stupid. If they drafted a quarterback in the first round, that you might see tables getting overturned.
Well, or a defensive lineman.
Yeah.
Those two. I mean, both of them are nuts.
Yeah. Exactly. All right. That's we got a couple days to go, and then we'll see what happens. For now, though, why don't we move on to our next topic?
Okay.
This one's a quick hit topic, just something news of note to let the fans know. D'Angelo Hall will not be in the broadcast booth for the radio team next year. We don't know why he's left. I haven't seen anything from him. I haven't looked in the last 40 minutes since we started, but he's leaving the broadcast booth, and London Fletcher is going to be replacing him, which I find a bit of a surprise.
I do too. And first of all, hopefully all is well with D'Angelo Hall. Maybe he just got tired of it. I don't know. Hopefully nothing's wrong. I think Fletcher's a bit odd, not because he's not a hero to the fans, but because he's been a bit at odds with the team.
Yeah.
And he said some things on NFL Network about the team and about management and everything. But maybe he views it as a new group. The old group is out, and maybe obviously he's happy with it because took the job.
Yeah.
But I found it a bit odd considering the things he said.
Yeah. I just find it odd that Hall left because, and maybe look, DC might be different from, I don't know how every market is. Like, we had Sonny, Sam, and Frank forever. My whole life, it felt like we had those three guys. And then, okay, Frank was replaced by Larry, but Larry Michaels was there, 10 plus years, 15 years?
A long time.
Yeah. Suddenly we've turned it over, and we're turning it over again in 2 years. Like, to me, that's kind of crazy. Well,
and to forget, like, Chris Cooley was there. He was great, and now he's gone. Yeah. There's another one.
Doc was doing the sideline stuff for a little while. Like, he was in there.
Our buddy Doc Walker.
There's been a lot of turnover, man.
I've always said, I mean, you know this, Alex, I don't really care particularly about whose voice it is. I mean, I want it to be competent, certainly, but I'm not one who's like married to these guys and, have to have the same announcers. I don't care that much about it.
Well, I care if a person's good. Like that,
right.
That I want them to, and also at least for like radio broadcasts, and it is good having actual former players doing the team's broadcasts. Like, and you wouldn't know this, Steve, because you're not in the area, but like with the Nationals, because the Nationals came to DC, they didn't have any former players for a long time that could have been in the broadcast booths. And they still don't
bring announcers from Montreal with them.
No, they would just get like FP Santangelo or whatever, like they would just get random people.
Oh, okay.
For a couple years, and it's better to have guys who played for the team. And I know you were a big Dodgers fan. Dodgers had probably the most iconic radio broadcaster.
Well, yeah, Scully, who had been with the team. He had been with the team since the days of Jackie Robinson.
Right.
So yeah, but he wasn't a player. But yeah, he was an iconic voice. But Oral Hershiser,
and he was doing play-by-play, not color.
Yeah. But they've had a string of color guys, and Oral Hershiser was a hero, for a while. But yeah, true. I mean, most of these teams have former players. I'm fine with London. Don't get me wrong. I just think it's a bit odd because he was like kind of at a weird distance from the team, and the team hasn't really celebrated him. The one time they did, they misspelled his name. It is like.
That was kind of, I forgot about that.
I mean, it's the most Washington thing ever, of course.
Yeah.
It's these. I mean, I would have been very disrespected and irritated if that happened to me.
Yes. It's if they put like an extra E in your name somehow.
Yes, exactly. Put one O in.
Yeah. And somehow they put in your first name, which is even weirder.
Yeah, weird. Yeah.
All right, so yeah, I'm sure it'll be fine. Just weird, and
right.
The radio thing has had a lot of turnover this year, which people like me care about. Most people probably don't.
Well, Larry Marcus, good riddance.
Yeah. All right, so the next thing I wanted to bring up, interesting thing. Just want to get your take, Steve, on the whole news that Devos Samuel wants out of San Francisco. Obviously, the second it happened, a bunch of fans were like, "Oh, let's bring him to we already have a guy like this in DC, right? Like, what's your thoughts on him wanting out first, and then like, why would anyone want to bring him here?
Well, in terms of why he wants out, I mean, who knows? I don't pay enough attention to the 49ers dynamic to know. It may be a Jimmy Garoppolo thing. Maybe he knows Trey Lance sucks. Maybe he doesn't like the way he's used. But as a macro, I just said this on IJB an hour ago, which will come out Wednesday. This is a case of the players trying to, as a kind of a macro level, assert more control akin to the NBA, which will never work in the NFL for a variety of reasons. It's a fruitless exercise. The owners are more united. There's more players. There's a lot more money involved.
Mm-hmm.
The NBA has kowtowed to the players for decades. And, there's a smaller number of players in the, and it's very star driven. That's not what the NFL is.
Right.
But in terms of Samuel, yeah, look, people, we have Deebo Samuel already.
Right.
We literally have a guy with the same last name, for Christ's sake, in Curtis Samuel, who plays exactly like Deebo Samuel. Are you gonna have two of them? And then you have Antonio Gibson, who's sort of like the running back version of Samuel, because Samuel
and
is
with J.D. McKissick, also the running back. Yeah.
Right. Now, Deebo Samuel is a wide receiver at heart who they put into a running back role, and obviously Gibson and McKissick are the other way around.
Right.
So no, I don't get the Samuel Deebo thing at all. I think that'd be stupid.
And here's my other thing. Do we do a great job of utilizing the fact that we have, at least last year, we had two guys who kind of could do this?
Well, the fact that you asked the question means you know the answer to it.
Yes, I know. It's an old Jewish thing. I was celebrating the last night of Passover, so I'm doing a lot of the Jewish. Let me ask rhetorical questions you know the answer to.
Well, it's funny that I saw. I love Frasier, the show Frasier.
Yeah,
it's probably my favorite sitcom. It's very intellectual.
Yes.
I like that, and so it's right up my alley. But anyway, Niles was going through that exact routine at one of those episodes. They had for a comedic setup. They had to pretend they were Jewish.
Right.
And the father, Martin, didn't know how to do that. And so Niles kept asking him rhetorical questions, which frustrated the dad, Martin.
Right.
I just thought it was kind of funny. But so, yeah, you did the very Jewish thing.
Yes. I do it all the time.
We just lost half our audience.
That's fine. Hey, look, if you don't like Frasier, I don't know what's wrong with you. It was a great show.
Right. You know, the reboot is coming out here shortly, right?
Yeah, I know. I is that going to be on Peacock or something? I don't.
It's on Paramount. Paramount Plus.
Paramount's doing it. Okay.
The problem is they haven't announced who of the cast is returning. The actor who played Martin died, so he can't come back. But
the dog died like 5 times. Like they replaced the dog.
There were 2 of them. Yeah, 2 of those dogs. But we don't know whether Daphne and Roz and Niles are coming back. And if they don't get them, the dynamic is different. It'd be weird.
But I mean, look, we're not going to go down that rabbit hole.
No, we could do a Frasier podcast.
Yes, I'm sure we actually could. Because I also love Cheers. So anyway, let's go. I don't really have much else to say about Deebo. I just think stop wanting every guy who comes out and says he wants to trade. They don't want to come to DC. When they're saying this, they want a ton of money, usually.
When you're a crappy, awful franchise that never wins, you have to overpay people to come here.
Also, here's my thing. Deebo Samuel, fun player. He doesn't put up the kind of numbers that merit 20-something million a year.
That's my point. Yeah. I mean, we have that already.
Right.
Curtis Samuel at a much cheaper price.
Right. Just there's going to be a lot of these guys. The way the NFL is going now, there's probably going to be 40 of these guys in the next 2 years. Guys who are running receivers.
Absolutely.
So, and you're going to use them the same way you use running backs. You're going to use them up and let them go. So don't overpay them.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. Next topic, and we're just kind of burning through these because
it's a slow week, folks.
It's a slow week, and this is the last one we had. The team responded to all the stuff that came out. What was it? Started 2 weeks ago and last week, and did the biggest smear campaign against Jason Friedman in the media that I've seen in a while from a football team.
It's shameful.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. It really says a lot about the quality of the character of the people who lead this team. It shows that they're petty. It shows that they are not high quality people. It really shows if Dan Snyder's driving it, if Jason Wright's driving it, I don't know. What it shows is that they're not people I would want to associate with in any way. So what happened was Jason Friedman, if you recall, is the guy who went to Congress, and I've already said my piece about Congress, but I'll just reiterate very briefly that Congress has no business doing this, but regardless. So Friedman went to them and had 20-some had documents showing apparently that the team had kept 2 sets of books. In response, as Alex said, the team just had the worst smear campaign ever. They sent a 20-page letter to the FTC, of which 19 and a half of them was bashing Friedman, and I'm being facetious, but it was and it wasn't just, if you haven't read this, it's not like Friedman's information is wrong. It's this guy's a bad person.
Right.
And he's yelled at women and all these things that are totally irrelevant, none of which, by the way, mean he's wrong. And they also said he's wrong, to be fair, but it was just an outright character assassination, just shameful.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So look, I believe they accused him of having an affair with a subordinate at one point. Yes. And I don't know if he's married or it wasn't an affair or he was just having a relationship. I don't know.
Which may be against the team's internal nepotism rules. I don't know. But
yeah, but
certainly not a good idea.
It's not a good idea. Steve, have you ever worked in a place where you didn't know about somebody sleeping with somebody of your coworkers? Because I've worked for a lot of companies. There's always something.
I mean, there's a lot less of that in the military. So yeah, I've had.
Well, they have to keep it. If you're doing it in the military, you can quickly.
Well, like I said, there's a lot less of that in the military. It happens, but much less.
Right.
Than it would necessarily. But in my civilian career, no, there's always been something going on.
There's always something that happens. And okay, she was younger than him. That happens all the time too.
It's always one of them's married, always.
Yeah, if he's married, look, I'm not going to consent to that. Look, that's a different story. But if they're both single, who cares?
I've had some law firm stories where either the office manager or the janitor will find women's underwear in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
That's, of course, law firms are hives of bad morals, in and of itself.
Sure. I've walked in on people in my.
Oh, have you really?
Yelp.
Never done that.
I've done that on more than one occasion in my life at different places I've worked.
Sorry.
Including people who could quickly have fired me if I ever came out and said who they were.
Would you care to say their names?
Not anymore. So I'm not going to mention who, but yes, I've walked in on some very interesting things in my life. But regardless, that happens. I don't care even if he's married. Maybe his wife knows. I don't know. Maybe they have an open marriage. Who cares? Not my business. The fact that he might have been a dick as a boss. That was the culture everywhere in this team, it sounds like, right?
I know, it sounds like if he really was a jerk, he'd fit right in.
Right? And he's been there 24 years. It's not like this was new, necessarily. Now, the team did say, oh, here's our counter to his, he said.
They said he's wrong, basically.
Right. They said, oh, no, the vice president forwarded the emails about the finances to our accountants, and it's all good. That or something along those lines.
Yeah. Now I gotta say, at this point, like I've said in the past, I don't know who to believe.
Yeah.
I haven't really read. I mean, a couple of the emails that Friedman had leaked out. You showed them to me, Alex.
Yeah.
And no, it didn't sound good, but there's context to it, and we don't know it. And I'm not convinced necessarily the team did this. Because we haven't seen the whole picture, and we might not ever. But the way the team responded is just, good God, is it gross? And they're totally missing the irony of that they're accusing him of the things that they are accused of themselves.
I don't think they're missing it, Steve. I think that's how they operate.
But they're saying it's bad. This guy is a bad person because he allegedly, supposedly, according to us, slept with a subordinate, and he was mean and all this, and, slapped a couple of, females on the butt.
Yeah.
They don't seem to understand it. That's what they did. And so are you calling yourselves horrible people? It's like a total lack of all recognition, and understanding of the situation.
Look, Politics 101, always accuse your enemy of what you're doing. We see it with Russia right now. They're like, oh, the Ukrainians are going to use nuclear weapons. Well, they don't even have nuclear weapons.
Yeah, they're committing genocide. Yeah.
Right.
Aren't you doing that, Vlad, yourself?
Yeah, exactly. And we won't get into domestic politics with that.
No, because
both sides do that too.
Well.
And but I think we can agree Russia's been doing that a lot.
On the other hand, yes. Yeah. On the other hand, Jason Friedman's just a guy.
Yeah.
I mean, for goodness sakes, it's just another thing. It's anybody who still roots for this franchise. I just don't know what to tell you.
On that level, I can't.
Yeah.
And I didn't even put this on the list. I saw a post from somebody who was with the marching band. Apparently, it sounds like they might be gutting the marching band.
Of course they are.
And I told this to Jason Wright that time I got to meet with him. The one thing you can't mess with is you got to keep that band. Like, if you want to keep the old fans at all, you got to keep stuff like that part of the old history. That was completely a positive. Like, there was nothing negative about the band.
Absolutely.
So if they're gutting that at all, that's such a mistake.
Well, and they're going to dump the theme song, Hail to the Redskins.
Well, we knew that. Like that.
I mean, but they're not going to keep. I could rewrite lyrics and keep the music.
Sure.
They're not going to do that. They're going to, and it's going to be some
the lyrics 3 times in their history. It's fine.
Yeah, and it's going to be some like hip hop thing, and I'm not going to want to listen to it, and it's going to be just awful. Of course, again, I don't care anymore, but
it just frustrates. Like, the thing that has irritated me, and I'm kind of coming around with you on like Jason Wright's just screwing this up pretty badly. All you had to do was hire some people who were like longtime fans and say, how do we do this right? And you didn't. You went with a bunch of people from Florida and from California and who don't root for this team, have no ties to the area. And you didn't understand there's value to certain traditions being kept. And how do we keep these traditions while making this change that we want to make respectfully? And
yeah,
there's a way to do it. And
they interviewed a bunch of people, like they did our writer Dave Earl. Jason Wright talked to him, but I don't sound like he listened to anybody.
Right. I think it was
just lip service to make people think they cared.
Right. It definitely has felt more and more that way as it's continued.
Because you had a bunch of great ideas.
Right.
And Dave did too. And I think Dave wrote about it. I think he wrote a column about it.
Mm-hmm. But now, it's two of the ideas I gave them. One they did, and they didn't do a great job, but they did it.
Which one? What was the
one? When I mentioned, hey, they're planning on tearing down RFK, you guys should do something as a team because that was the heart of this team.
What have they done with RFK?
They did like a thing where they brought Joe Theismann and Doug Williams.
That was the worst executed thing in the history of events.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's
how they did it.
It was embarrassingly awful. Yeah. But yes, and the other one I thought you had a great idea was HBCU.
Yeah. Now I won't take full credit. One of our regular commenters
brought
that one up, and I said that's such a good idea, and I sent it to him.
And we'll see if they do that.
They're going to do it, but they haven't done anything much yet, from what I can tell.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we can't escape from a Hogsty episode without bashing the team because they're so easy to bash.
I'm just saying, like, these missteps are really starting to change my mind on Jason Wright quite a bit.
But police credentials for training camp.
Yeah, that ain't happening.
I don't think they're going to let me in the door, but let's hope they probably not you either, but we'll hope they let Jamal in. Jamal's had a much quieter mouth than you and I have.
Yeah. Well, and Jamal's got other connections that might help. So
yeah.
So, all right. I think that should wrap up this week's episode of the show. I have to go and get my wife's birthday party set up and all that fun stuff because it's her birthday. I said last week, her birthday and our anniversary are this week and next week. Oh, wow. So it always screws up the draft for me.
Did you not think that through?
I did not think. Love is stupid.
Well, listen, tell your wife happy 18th birthday.
For the 25th time.
Makes you a pedophile.
Yeah.
No, just joking. His wife is not 18. His wife is 18.
No, my wife is 4 years old. So.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
Robin.
Yeah. Yes, she was at the time. All right, guys. We will talk to you all next week after the draft. Bye.